Let's dive into the mysteries in today's video. Nazi symbols and Nordic runes. A strange discovery took place at a Danish airport during World War II. It was a brooch engraved with ancient Nordic runes. The story behind this brooch is not widely known. It was once part of the Nazis' effort to use runic symbols to reinforce their own dark ambitions. It all began in 1944. A Danish local uncovered a skeleton along with several pieces of jewelry about a meter underground during the construction of the airport. An inspector from the National Museum of Denmark came to investigate the scene, and it was he who discovered the brooch. One side of the brooch was carved with runic characters, the other side bore the swastika symbol. At the time the brooch was crafted, the swastika was a sun symbol used by Europeans for thousands of years, long before the Nazis appropriated it for their own purposes. Many members of the Nazi regime believed not only that the Germanic race was superior to all others, but that their ancestry could be traced back to the Viking Age. Part of their propaganda claimed that runes were the very first writing system in the world and that they all belonged to their own history. In their effort to rewrite the past, the Nazis taught that runes had appeared before any other form of language, a claim that is entirely false. To the Nazis, this brooch was regarded as proof of their so-called divine lineage. But when the discovery was published in Danish newspapers in 1945, the editors carefully erased the swastika from the photo before it was made public. Gorgon, 252 million years ago, Earth experienced an event known as the Great Dying, or the Permian extinction, which wiped out up to 90% of all living species on the planet. Yet, there was one creature that managed to survive this catastrophe: the Gorgonopsians, otherwise known as Gorgons. Christian Camera from the North Carolina Museum of Natural Sciences calls Gorgonopsians a dead clade walking. In other words, even though they made it through the mass extinction, they were still doomed to disappear. A dead clade walking is a lineage that survives a major upheaval, only to have no real hope for long-term survival. Typically, they last another 1 or 2 million years before environmental changes make it impossible for them to adapt. Then again, 1 or 2 million years doesn't sound so bad, especially when you compare it to how long humans have been around. Gorgonopsians, or Gorgons, get their name from the Greek monsters who could turn people to stone with a single glance. Medusa, for example, was a Gorgon. Prehistoric Gorgonopsians, however, were nowhere near that terrifying. They belonged to a family of giant, saber-toothed cats, growing up to 11 feet long and weighing as much as 660 pounds, with enormous jaws and incisors as long as ice picks. For a long time, scientists thought these Gorgons had gone extinct, along with the Permian extinction event. But recently, researchers uncovered a fossilized skull in South Africa that proved they actually survived when most other animals vanished. When 90% of life had been wiped out, scientists were genuinely shocked that such a gigantic saber-toothed cat managed to hold on for another million years. These cats weren't ones to give up easily. They ate anything left just to survive. The Heliodorus pillar. The Heliodorus pillar is an archaeological discovery that seems almost out of place given where it was found. This column stands in central India, engraved with an inscription dedicated to Hindu deities. On its own, that might not sound extraordinary. The real mystery lies in the fact that the pillar bears the name of an ancient Greek diplomat. This discovery was made in 1877 by British archaeologist Alexander Cunningham. He stumbled upon the pillar near the city of Besnagar. At the time, locals were using it for livestock sacrifices, and the ancient column was covered in a thick layer of red powder. Even though it looked rather shabby, Alexander realized he had found something of great importance. It wasn't long before he found several similar columns in the surrounding area and grew increasingly convinced they were all connected. However, it wasn't until 1910 that a new research team scraped away the red powder and discovered ancient Brahmi script carved into the surface. They also found the name Heliodorus, a Greek ambassador who lived in the 2nd century BCE. Later, excavations revealed that this site had once been a massive architectural complex, but it had been severely damaged by flooding over the past 2,000 years. The pillar had been part of a megalithic temple, while nearly all other traces had been erased. In the early 20th century, this discovery caused a sensation in archaeological circles. The pillar appeared to be evidence that Heliodorus was one of the first Westerners to convert to a major branch of Hinduism, and he might even have brought that faith back to Greece. It also hinted at the existence of a whole new religious community that's more than 2,000 years old. The Hypatia stone. The Hypatia stone is a mystery that scientists still haven't been able to crack. The story begins in 1996, when the stone was discovered in Egypt. At the time, it was believed to be of extraterrestrial origin. By 2013, a research group from the University of Johannesburg took a closer look and confirmed the hypothesis that the stone definitely came from space. In 2015, another team of scientists took the investigation even further, using nuclear probes and gas analysis. They were astonished to find that it matched neither any known meteorite nor any comet. In fact, nobody really knows where the stone came from or what its precise composition is. Scientists have found tiny microdiamonds inside the stone. They also believe it crashed into Earth about 28 million years ago. However, its bizarre chemical makeup continues to baffle the scientific community, who still can't pinpoint its true origin. Some suggest it may have broken off from Mars or Venus. Others believe it's coated in interstellar dust that makes it impossible to identify. There are even theories that its unusual chemistry is the result of it once being part of a supernova explosion. This tiny rock might once have belonged to a star that blew itself apart in a distant galaxy, blasted into space as cosmic shrapnel, eventually making its way to Earth. Nazi zombies. There have been rumors that the Nazis once tried to build an anti-gravity machine, and much more besides. One of the most persistent legends about the Nazis is that they attempted to create zombies by resurrecting the dead. But did they truly try to assemble an army of the undead, or is this just another wild conspiracy theory? The truth is, the Nazis did have special research groups dedicated to hunting down anything related to the supernatural. Some were tasked with searching for religious relics, like the crown of thorns of Jesus. Others were sent out to look for gateways to mythical lands. There were even Nazi groups who tried to turn their soldiers into psychic warriors. As crazy as that sounds, the CIA actually conducted similar experiments during the Cold War. And then, there were the horrific medical experiments. Prisoners in concentration camps were used as test subjects in Nazi laboratories. Nazi soldiers tried everything, from figuring out how humans could survive in extreme cold, to finding ways to revive people who were on the brink of death from hypothermia, to determining the precise pressure at which human organs would start to fail. We still don't know the full details of these experiments. What we do know is that they were extremely brutal and that most ended in death. But because so many bizarre experiments were conducted in total secrecy, it's impossible to say for sure whether the Nazis ever really tried to bring the dead back to life. The Archaeological project. Heinrich Himmler, one of the most ruthless and fanatical leaders of the Nazi regime, was the man behind the Archaeological project. Himmler launched this project in an effort to prove that Germans were the true descendants of the Norse gods. Both Himmler and many other high-ranking Nazis believed that the so-called Aryan race had its origins with the Aesir gods of Norse mythology. The Unsolved project set out to uncover undeniable archaeological evidence to support that idea. The Nazis hoped to find physical proof linking them to the so-called superior Aryan race. They believed the Aryans originated from a lost civilization that modern science had yet to discover. In 1935, Heinrich Himmler and Hermann Wirth began gathering evidence. Hermann was obsessed with the legend of Atlantis and believed the Aryans were actually descended from the original Atlanteans. According to him, the Norse gods once lived in Atlantis, and a few escaped before the cataclysm that sent Atlantis sinking beneath the ocean. The remaining Atlanteans supposedly migrated to Germany and gradually became the Germanic people. The Nazis believed that the descendants of these mighty Atlanteans had the right to rule over all lesser races. Hopefully, you're still with us, because this theory is pretty out there. Despite pouring millions of dollars into the project, the Nazis never found the supernatural relics they were hoping for. They fabricated much of their archaeological research, but real evidence never appeared. Super soldiers. American intelligence reports that China has conducted numerous human experiments within its military, aiming to develop super soldiers, much like Captain America in the Marvel movies. China isn't the only country seeking to use biological modifications to create soldiers with enhanced abilities. There are claims that China has used gene editing technology on the battlefield. The idea is to manipulate the human genome, producing stronger, more efficient soldiers across the board. If China and other nations are developing this technology, you can bet the US won't be left behind. The CIA once secretly tried to create an army of psychic soldiers back in projects from the 1950s. If there's a super soldier race, America certainly won't settle for last place. It's still unclear exactly how humans might be modified. Some scientists suggest Chinese researchers are using CRISPR gene editing technology, but there could be even more advanced methods out there that the public has never heard of. Who knows? Maybe Jason Bourne is real. What do you think about the idea of super soldiers? Share your thoughts in the comments below. UFOs in the sky. A German pilot witnessed something extraordinary in the skies over Czechoslovakia in May 1945. The pilot even snapped a photograph of what, during the war, was called a Foo fighter. These were strange glowing objects, often cigar-shaped, that were spotted by pilots on both sides. German and American airmen alike described Foo fighters as brilliant red lights, capable of maneuvering far beyond any modern missile, sometimes even outpacing their own planes. In the German pilot's photograph, you can see a disc-shaped object, bright as the moon, hovering in the sky. Many people believe that extraterrestrials silently observed World War II from Earth's upper atmosphere, completely undetected by humans. With so many UFO reports from veteran pilots, it's hard to dismiss them all as hallucinations. On the 17th of December, 1944, one pilot reported seeing 6 objects flying in a T formation at an altitude of 1,000 feet, but in the blink of an eye, they vanished without a trace. Just days later, 2 other flight crews spotted similar glowing orange objects in the area, rising up to nearly 10,000 feet before darting off into space like meteors. And these are just a few examples. There were countless UFO sightings throughout World War II, the CIA and UFOs. It's estimated that 57% of Americans believe in the existence of extraterrestrial life. Former President Carter once claimed he'd seen a UFO, and so did Reagan. But is the US government hiding the truth about aliens? What do they know about flying saucers that they haven't told the public? UFOs really only became a major issue starting in 1947, when the Cold War began. In the late 1940s, a wave of modern UFO sightings and reports began flooding in. The first such case in the US took place on the 24th of June, 1947. Kenneth Arnold was the first famous witness to report seeing a strange object in the sky. He was a respected private pilot and businessman. Kenneth recounted seeing 9 flying discs near Mount Rainier, estimating their speed at over 1,000 miles per hour. UFO sightings spiked to such an extent that the US government created dedicated task forces to investigate. The US Air Force launched Project Saucer in 1948 to collect data. In 1952, Project Blue Book was established and lasted well into the 1960s. However, neither effort produced any major breakthroughs. In 1952, CIA officials dismissed UFO sightings as nothing more than a summer plague of hallucinations, chalking it up to mass delusion. Still, the UFO phenomenon has refused to disappear. Countless UFO videos continue to flood the internet. The CIA is rumored to be quietly monitoring everything, but no government has ever publicly admitted to knowing about aliens. There's one issue with UFOs, and another entirely with aliens themselves. What do you think? Are they hiding something from us? Do senior officials know about extraterrestrials and just keep it secret? The world beneath the ice. British astronomer Edmund Halley presented a fascinating theory before the Royal Society of London back in the 1690s. Halley believed that the Earth wasn't a solid, dense sphere. In his view, our planet resembled a hollow structure revolving around a central core. He believed the Earth consisted of several different layers, each with its own unique ecosystem. Halley claimed that if we could just drill through the surface and dig deep enough, we'd eventually reach an inner layer of the planet and witness an entirely new world firsthand. When critics argued that a hollow Earth wouldn't have any light for life to thrive, Halley simply smiled. He insisted there would, of course, be light, because the spaces between the Earth's shells would have their own glowing atmosphere. This, he said, would allow plants and animals to flourish. If someone proposed a theory like this today, they'd be laughed out of every scientific conference in the world. But in the 1690s, some scientists actually thought it was a brilliant idea. The theory spread rapidly, and many people genuinely believed that beneath our world was a parallel mirror world just waiting to be discovered. By the 1810s, American researcher John Sims even claimed you could access the hollow Earth through tunnels at both the North and South Poles. Even today, there are people who believe that somewhere in the Arctic and Antarctic, secret entrances to the Earth's interior remain hidden, ancestors buried in the ice. A recent conspiracy theory claims that a secret base was discovered beneath the Antarctic ice, housing the remains of humanity's ancient ancestors. It's unclear how anyone supposedly found this lab, but according to conspiracy theorists, the site contains human-like beings sealed inside enclosed chambers. They believe this base is where the first extraterrestrial visitors created the prototype for modern humans. Some even trace the origins all the way back to the ancient Anunnaki. arguing that it was in this frozen base that the Anunnaki engineered humans to mine gold for them 5,000 years ago. Like most conspiracy theories, this idea has absolutely no evidence to back it up. In reality, scientists say they have plenty of proof that no such base exists in Antarctica. Peter Fretwell of the Antarctic Research Committee says experts have surveyed and mapped the continent's terrain for the past 60 years. They've gathered complete data on its features, scanned every inch of the surface to create detailed maps, and Peter insists that at no point have scientists ever discovered a lost base during any of their research. The prehistoric border wall. The first border wall in human history may have been made entirely of ice. Towering as high as a 300-story building, this ancient ice barrier could have prevented prehistoric humans from ever setting foot in North America. If this new theory proves true, it could completely rewrite everything we thought we knew about how the first Native Americans arrived on the continent. This isn't so much a conspiracy theory as it is a genuine scientific discovery. Archaeologist Jory Clark from Oregon State University found evidence of a massive wall of ice that once stretched across the land bridge connecting Asia to North America. After the last ice age, rising sea levels submerged the land bridge, creating what we now know as the Bering Strait. To this day, scientists have two main theories for how humans made it to North America. The first theory is that people walked across the land bridge, a straightforward, logical explanation. The second is that they paddled along the Pacific coastline by boat. The first theory could be completely debunked if there really was a 1,000-meter high ice wall that no one could cross. That would mean nobody ever walked across the land bridge. If so, it would send shockwaves through the scientific community, toppling everything we thought we knew about the ancient migration across the Bering Land Bridge. The eighth wonder of the world. In 1941, Hitler's army looted a room made entirely out of gemstones. This was the Amber Room, a gift from Frederick William of Prussia to Peter the Great of Russia in 1716. This wasn't just any treasure. It was an entire chamber decorated with amber panels, backed with gold leaf, and filled with dazzling jewels. The Amber Room was so magnificent that historians dubbed it the eighth wonder of the world. The Amber Room was installed in the Catherine Palace near St. Petersburg, but during World War II, Nazi soldiers dismantled every jewel and panel, packing them into 27 wooden crates. The crates were sealed and shipped to a secret location, but strangely, they never arrived, and no trace of the Amber Room has been found since. Some say it was stolen in a legendary heist. Others believe the crates were loaded onto a ship that sank and now lies at the bottom of the sea. But if you ask Karl-Heinz Klein, he'll tell you it's hidden in an underground vault, accessible only through a secret tunnel. Karl-Heinz and his team of treasure hunters have been tracking the Amber Room for years. Right now, they're focused on an abandoned munitions factory near the town of Wietel, Germany. They believe the treasure was brought here by an underground rail line, but the tunnels and tracks have long since been sealed and forgotten. The treasure has yet to be found, but the team hopes to finally uncover a clue soon. Tons of Nazi gold. A World War II treasure hunting group called the Silesian Bridge Foundation believes they made the discovery of a lifetime at an abandoned castle in southern Poland in 2022. They claim to have found tons of Nazi gold hidden away. According to their account, the gold was stored in a metal chest buried underground, pinpointed using ground-penetrating radar. They learned of the chest's existence from an old diary kept by a former Nazi SS member. The castle where the chest was found once served as a brothel for SS officers during the war. According to a passage in the diary, the gold was stolen by SS Chief Heinrich Himmler in the final months of the war. Himmler planned to found a Fourth Reich after the collapse of the Third Reich and needed to gather as much gold as possible. The gold was packed into the chest and buried by an SS officer named von Stein. The diary led researchers straight to the castle, and radar confirmed the presence of a large metal object underground. The scan clearly showed that the soil had been disturbed to hide something. The woman in the marble coffin. In 1969, Soviet scientists were said to have discovered the perfectly preserved body of a woman buried in a marble coffin outside a small village. The woman and her coffin were extracted from solid ice, which had kept her remains in flawless condition for an unknown amount of time. The truly shocking part of this story is the claim that the woman lived 800 million years ago. Modern scientists believe this is absolutely impossible, but that's exactly what the Soviets insisted they'd found. It's unclear where this conspiracy theory originated, but it first surfaced online around 2014. According to the theory, Soviet scientists and top communist officials covered up the discovery. The problem is, if the woman really were 800 million years old, It would turn everything we know about human history upside down. Her body would disprove the theory of evolution and serve as physical evidence of an ancient human species. If true, this woman would have belonged to a race that lived a staggering 800 million years before humans were supposed to exist. 800 million years? It sounds utterly insane, doesn't it? In reality, this conspiracy has little basis, since there's no proof that such a discovery ever happened. No one knows where the marble coffin is. There's no evidence of the woman's remains, and it's all just one of those bizarre stories that circulates on the internet. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already, so you won't miss out on more fascinating videos about the world's greatest mysteries. See you next time.